I read through the whole Bible to see what it said about money. Jesus warned more about money, probably 10 times more about money than anything else. I'm thinking, man, business success could be really detrimental to my life. I need to be careful.
Hello, and welcome to Working with me, Dan Doriani, hosting a podcast where we explore faith, work, culture, and the way believers can make a difference in their corner of the world. My guest today is Alan Barnhardt. He is the CEO of Barnhardt's Crane and Rigging. That's a big industry name, and it's big industry. It's big machines doing big things. But they do things like transportation, rigging, rental, storage, cargo, solving major problems like loss of power. You started with your parents, family mom and pop operation. Now you run it with your brother. I think you called him the mad scientist unofficially and the chief engineer officially. You got going as the leaders in 1986. What did I miss? Tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do, and then we'll get into how you practice your faith on your job.
No, that's right. My brother is sort of the smart one. He's the one that comes up with all the methods of how we do what we do, and I'm more the management guy. And so we've been partners now for 38 years, worked together before that. We both have very boring resumes. We've worked in the same business since we were 10 years old. And so we came up working with my parents and did that until 1986. And then my parents decided to leave the business and got on a sailboat and sailed around the world. So that was quite a quick transition. And so my brother and I, when we were in our mid-20s, took over the business.
That sounds really terrific. And the arc of your business has been really good. I mean, God's blessed you. You've worked hard. You've done a good job, and people want your services. Can you tell me how you have weathered the crises? 2008 and 2009, of course, that would have a big impact on your kind of business. And then I'm guessing that COVID disrupted you about as much as anybody. Lots of good times. How did you handle the bad times? Talk us through it a little bit, please.
Didn't really have terribly bad times. We had amazingly good times leading up to 2008. So 2005, 6, and 7 were great years. 8 actually was a great year. Had a couple of years where we dropped 10% each year for a couple of years after in 2009, 2010. Our industry is not a boom industry or a bust industry. We're across a whole bunch of different industries. So we pick up and move heavy stuff for oil refineries, for paper, for power plants and paper mills and steel mills, and for heavy industry. And they tend to keep rolling through the recessions. And sometimes plants get shut down during hard times, and we are part of that process and moving plants from one place to another. When things are really booming, that's great for us. When they're not, it's not terrible for us. So we've never really had a bad year, but we've had certainly some years that were better than others.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I do see that you're fairly diversified, but that's interesting that when things are going poorly, you're part of the shutdown, moving around. So that keeps you going. That's a good way to keep the business afloat, not have to lay people off, things like that. So you have a really nice website, pictures of your work at oil refineries, and you also have a purpose statement I really like. The purpose of Barnhardt is to glorify God by developing people and encouraging them to use their skill and gifts in His service through constructive work, personal witness, and ministry funding. That's a great purpose statement. And there are 3 things there. In an interview, and you said, the goal is to use skill to do work that glorifies God. You started with that. And then you said, share your faith and be generous with the money God gives. Why did you start with doing work that glorifies God and using your skills? I'm not against it. I love it. But why? Tell me your reasoning.
Well, I mean, I think some people think of secular work as at best neutral. And I would say using our skills and gifts in God's service through coming up with a good strategy or creating a new tool or a new method is just as glorifying to God as using our skills and creativity to write a Christian song or to write a book or to preach a sermon. I think all of us are using our skills and gifts in God's service. And I think doing constructive work of a whole variety of types brings glory to God. And so I think we're trying to deploy the skills and gifts God has given us and give Him credit for those skills and gifts, but to deploy them to benefit society in those 3 ways: by doing good work, by sharing our faith, and by trying to generate profit that we can use to both grow our business and also use it to fund organizations that are engaged in life change of others.
Yeah, that's great. I would imagine. I want to talk about generosity because I know it's very important to you, and you've thought through it well. But your statements make me think of a comment by an author named Dorothy Sayers, and she said the first thing God requires of a Christian carpenter is to make good chairs and tables.
Yeah,
I'm guessing you'd agree with that.
I would. I think that we are to be, because it's taking our skill and using it in a constructive way. And I think that's something we should all be doing. And we shouldn't see that as the sideline or the necessary evil so that we can generate money to fund ministry. I think it's part of the good stuff in life. Our work is part of the good stuff.
Yeah, I just completely agree with you, and I know our listeners do too. But you do aim to be generous, and you do it a couple ways. I'll start with your policy of giving away 50% of your profits. And the minute I read that, I thought, that's pretty bold in an industry that probably is fairly capital intensive. I don't know exactly how capital intensive you are, but big machinery requires capital investments. So you're not plowing all your capital all your profits into capital of go. You're trusting God that it's still going to work if you give away half of your profits. Walk us through that. What's your rationale?
Well, the rationale was everything belongs to God. Everything that we have is God's stuff, and we need to be stewards of it and figure out how to deploy it in the most effective way. When we looked at the tax law in the U.S., there was a huge subsidy for making charitable contributions. It is a very capital intensive business. We have hundreds of millions of dollars of equipment, and we're fairly fast growing. And you would think that's not a good formula to be jettisoning 50% of your profit each year. And if you leave God out of the equation, it's probably true. But when you add God into the equation, we have found that we have always had enough capital to grow our business. We've used debt at times, and there's times that we have significant debt, and then right now we have none. But we've had enough capital to grow our business and to generate money for ministry. And we've found them to be complementary, not in competition with each other. And really the thing that has limited our growth is people more so than capital. We continue to try to develop people so that we can continue to grow. Yeah, so it is a little unusual, but we found God has provided. And we think that, as we look at everything that we have, we said it's all God's stuff. How do we deploy it in the best way? And we thought paying those taxes, basically paying a 40% tax, is pretty hard to make up. And so as we ran those numbers, we decided that it was better actually to go out and borrow money and give it away because the interest rates are relatively low than it was to try to keep that money.
That's a very interesting principle to operate by. But I will tell you that I love the concept that God will make it work. I mean, technically speaking, it's a bad idea, but we're not just technical people. And I had a conversation recently, Alan, with a man who didn't realize he's in a pretty high tax bracket. And he apparently had not been very generous for a while. And I said, that if you give $1 away, it costs you about 56 cents. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, let me walk you through taxes when you're a successful businessman.
Yeah, and if you wait until some people wait until they die or wait until they're very old, and you've missed out on massive tax benefits, and you've missed out on the blessing of being part of life change of other people. And I do think that the return on investment, and when you're investing in other people, is much better than the return on the stock market or whatever. So I think it's counterproductive to try to save it up until later. I think to try to figure out how to deploy it as soon as possible. We try to send our money out as quickly as possible. We don't have a foundation or a corpus. We're trying to deploy the money we make this year, deploy it next year, and get it out.
And in one place you say that you believe that you get better people working for you, at least some of the time, because they know that the fruit of their labor will, of course, give them good wages and maybe bonuses. I'm not trying to ask you how you do your salary structure, but somewhere it's clear from your website and from your style that you try to reward people for good work. But you have 80 people helping give away the money. And you got to be delighted to do that because it takes work to give money away. But they want to sign up for something they believe in.
Yeah, so we have a group of people, employees and spouses, who say we we're interested in this. This is motivational for us. We want to help with this. And so we form them into teams, and those teams meet every month. Some of them meet a couple times a month. And their task is to try to figure out how to recommend a portfolio of ministries to the board for a specific area. I'm on the India team. And so we meet every month. And once a year, we go to the board and we say, here are the 20 or 30 organizations within India that we think we should fund. And so members of the group travel to India. We do tons of Zoom calls with folks in India and try to figure out how to deploy this money that God has provided. So we have 6 teams like that, heavily engaged. And there are a lot of other people in the company that don't want to be part of that process directly, but are still feel highly motivated by the fact that they work for a company that gives back. We do smaller grants everywhere we have a branch. We have about 50 cities where we have operations, and we're doing something in each of those cities that's selected by the team there in the local city. So the 80 people are more the strategic global funding, which is probably 90 to 95% of the dollars. But we also have probably more than 100 other people who are engaged in local things, and we try to do something locally in each place where we have an operation.
That sounds great. And there's another theme behind this that you've spoken about, and that is breaking the power of greed. And you're a man who studies the Bible manifestly. There's so many warnings about the dangers of wealth. We think, of course, of the rich young ruler. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And you're trying to practice that by breaking the power of greed. And I'm going to ask you to comment on that, but I want you to do it especially because you're a man with children. And your children knew that their inheritance wasn't going up and up and up, and mom and dad were not getting richer and richer and richer. And you explained it to them in a way that did not make them feel deprived. You told a specific story about your son wanting a Hummer at one point, and I thought that was a good way to get at it for concrete way of talking about it. Just talk on those themes, if you would, a little bit, Alan.
The whole idea and the hope was when my brother and I decided to become partners. Partnerships can be tricky and dangerous, and I think business success is more dangerous than business failure. I read through the whole Bible to see what it said about money. Thousands of verses, said a lot, and most of it was warning. Jesus warned more about money, probably 10 times more about money than anything else. And some of the parables he told about the 4 soils, about the guy with the bigger barns, on and on he went. Don't store up treasure for yourself on earth. Don't worry about money. That verse is in 1 Timothy. We're talking about people who want to get rich, plunge themselves into ruin and destruction. Some have wandered from the faith. And so I'm a young guy, I was 23, 24 when I'm reading these verses. I'm thinking, man, business success could be really detrimental to my life. I need to be careful. And so when my brother and I talked about becoming partners, we put safeguards in our life. And the first one was the concept of stewardship. Everything we have has come from God, belongs to God. We're stewards, not owners. We have no rights, but we do have responsibilities. And we said, basically, God, this is your business. Technically, my brother and I each owned half at that point, and we did until 2008. But the second element of safeguard was to say we're going to put a cap on our lifestyle. We're going to live a relatively simple lifestyle, and if God chooses to prosper the business, we're not going to see that as a call to ratchet up our lifestyle. Instead, we're going to see it as an opportunity to use that money to help others. And that's much more motivational anyway. That's kind of what we did. We had no idea what God was going to do. It was a very small company, about 8 or 10 employees at that point, under $1.5 million of revenue. But just in case, we wanted to put those safeguards in our life. And I'm so thankful that we did. My brother and I have been partners now for 38 years. We've never argued about money. And my wife and I have been married for over 38 years, and we've never argued about money. I think so many families get ripped apart by money, and it's not because there's not enough. It's usually because there's too much and how to distribute too much. And we decided that we were going to solve that on the front end and basically say, this is God's business. We are stewards, not owners, and we're going to try to deploy those funds of this business as quickly as we can and live a relatively simple lifestyle. And we think that's a good way to live and a good way for our kids to live. And so we never saw it as our business. Our kids, therefore, never saw it as their business. And I think expectation management is huge in this area.
But your son did want a Hummer at one point.
Oh, yeah. I mean, our kids were human and they wanted stuff. And it was time when he wanted a Hummer. He was probably 14. I mean, he couldn't even drive the thing, but he just, every time we'd see one on the road, Dad, he would tell me about how tall a wall this Hummer could climb over and how deep of water it could go through. And he had all the statistics. And I finally sat down with him and I said, son, we could buy a Hummer. We could buy 50 Hummers if we wanted to. We could line our driveway with Hummers and we could write a check for it and it'd be no problem. But, you know, the used Suburban that we can pay $10,000 for gets better mileage, hauls more people, more comfortable, better maintenance. It's not quite as cool, but think what that $90,000 Delta would do in India where we were a couple months ago or a year ago. And see, there's choices. And we basically, there's a lot of times we had to tell our kids, no, we're not going to do these things because of the lifestyle we chose. But we also showed them the alternative. We took them all over the world to meet amazing brothers and sisters in Christ. And so when I reminded him of that, he got it. Mm-hmm. And he quit talking about Hummers. And if you talk to him now, he is not slightly, none of my kids are feeling like they were the victims of our choices. They feel like they were the beneficiaries. And so many times they met at our dinner table or on trips we took, they met amazing brothers and sisters who were doing hard things in hard places. And we got to be a part of it. And they got to know these people. And so my kids, I think it was a great benefit for my kids to not grow up as rich kids and to learn that you don't always get what you want, but at the same time, learn that the alternative to being a consumer is to be a kingdom investor.
Well, that's great. In fact, you and I both know that it's easy for people who have inherited a lot of wealth to have a life that's not very good. It's a little bit like hitting the lottery or something. People just do not know how to handle a lot of wealth most of the time, especially if they get it all at once, especially if it's given to them. But I also like the idea that you did give your children an array of experiences, maybe not cars and, Xboxes and so forth, but rich experiences.
Hi, I'm John Perkins, Executive Director of the Center for Faith and Work St. Louis. You've been listening to our podcast, Working with Dan Doriani. The Center also offers conferences on faith and work throughout the United States. Our goal is to equip formal and informal leaders to make a difference in their corner of the world. We equip Christian leaders to run 10-hour faith and work cohorts on 3 continents. Please visit our website at faithandworkstl.org to see how your church or organization can form a faith and work cohort for people who have, or aspire to, a leadership role in their workplace. Now, back to Dan.
So let me switch a little bit to something else, and that is your firm does have values that touch on people and development of people. So I'm just going to read a couple things from your statement. So one is we serve people by providing purpose, our people, that is your employees, purpose, trust, belonging, progress, recognition, and compensation. So you take care of your people in concrete ways, which include compensation, but also purpose and trust. And then you also have a statement that says you give quality service to your customers, consistent service, operational excellence to meet their needs. And of course, you're in the engineering and process field, so we develop processes to do that. You don't have to comment on both of those, one or both, as you wish. What would you like to talk about? You don't just say we're trying to make money. Money's in there in both cases, but it's sort of at the tail end. People first, processes first, then the rest will take care of itself. That's how I read your statements.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're not in a sequence. I think they're all integrated together. And I think making a profit is a big chunk of what we're about. And we don't think of profit as a negative word. We would say we want to create value and we want to harvest that value in the form of profit. I think everyone would say people are the thing that generates all the ideas. The equipment's easy. The people are the tricky part. And what we've been saying more and more lately is that we think developing people is a product unto itself. And if we can positively affect a person, even if they leave our company, that is a product of our business. The fact that we had an impact on that person in a positive way. And so we do some things, hiring guys coming out of prison and trying to help them work through some of that stuff. But even a lot of young engineers we're hiring and trying to help them figure out how to live life. And so we want to be impacting people. We think those 6 things that you mentioned, starting with trust, are part of what every person really wants in a company. They want to have a purpose. They want to have trust. They want to make progress. They want to be recognized. So we want to provide those things. So I think the big thing for us, we want to provide a good boss for each of our people. It doesn't matter what we put on our website or what I believe. If their boss is a jerk, Barnhardt's a nasty place for them to work. And we're not there. I mean, we're not a perfect company. We have plenty of issues where we have to, that we still need to improve. But that's the trajectory we're on, is trying to figure out how to develop people and how to make sure that we're providing for those people a good boss, a good work environment.
Yeah, that's good. So you know that right now in some circles, there is a tendency to try to divide up industries between brown and green industries. A green industry is, cell phones and electric vehicles and growing vegetables in your backyard, which are probably things you and I both agree are terrific. I mean, I love to grow vegetables in my backyard, and I have a cell phone. And then heavy industry, trucks and cranes and construction and oil refineries are brown. Now, I don't like that dichotomy. I'm guessing you don't either. I think that, cell phones run on massive infrastructure, gigantic machines dig holes in the earth and put towers up and so forth. You and I both know that. But let me ask you to speak to creation care. We don't say I don't like to use the word environment. I like to talk about creation care. God created the world. We take care of it. How do you take care of creation? And what would you say to somebody who says, oh, you're a brown industry?
We are not policy setters. I mean, we are a service company. We service others who are doing the development so we're not policy setters. How we operate our business, we obviously try to not pollute. We're dealing with all kinds of hydraulic fluids and all kinds, we try to do that in a way that's careful and that protects the environment. Some of the things that we do, which are not on the normal list, we have some of the normal stuff, like we have solar power on top of our office and some stuff like that. But we keep our equipment longer. We keep our vehicles longer. What that does is you don't have to build a new vehicle. If you can keep a vehicle for half again as long, it saves all the energy that went into creating a new vehicle. So we do that. We're just trying to be good stewards of, and I think there's a lot that's done in the name of environmentalism that's counterproductive. I listened to Bjorn Lundberg, who seems like a really solid thinking guy about the environment, not a Christian guy, but that a lot of things are done in the name of environmentalism that really hurt people more than they help them. And so I want to be a practical environmentalist and not an environmentalist wacko. And I think there's a lot out there. A lot of this ESG stuff a lot of it's good, plain common sense that we should all do. And then some of it, I think, just becomes an agenda. And I'm not totally caught up in that. And we want to run our operation efficiently and well. I'd say we're not on the cutting edge of the environmental movement. I'd say we want to be practical environmentalists and not on the cutting edge.
Well, certainly, I see the consistency between your comment about having a $10,000 Chevy Suburban, which I'm guessing you didn't buy brand new at that price.
No,
you got a used car, and you keep cranes around, and you keep storage facilities and so forth around longer. Let me switch up a little bit and ask you a question. Is there anything that you have learned by your work? That is, what spiritual insights have come your way? And I think of Matthew chapter 8, verses 5 to 13, where that centurion has come to understand the power of Jesus by meditating on his own power. He says, Jesus, you can heal this man at a distance. All you have to do is say it, because that's the way it is with me. The emperor speaks to generals, speaks to various officers, and I'm an officer and I speak, and when I speak, it happens. He goes, I know it's just the same with you. And I think, a soldier sees that in Jesus because he's a soldier. So what have you seen about God's ways in your work, specifically because you do what you do?
I think the diversity of people that the Bible talks a lot about the body of the eye and the hand and the foot and I think the diversity of people is fascinating. And when I say diversity, I don't mean it in the necessarily different nationalities or different colors, but just different strengths of people working together, I think has been huge. I have a set of strengths and I have a set of weaknesses. And fortunately, we have assembled a team that is quite diverse in terms of their strengths and weaknesses. I've seen the body of Christ in action using their skills and gifts. Some people that are, for a foot, sometimes a hand can be frustrating because they think differently. But if they can stay in the mix and you can have a mutual respect, it's a way to make a great team. And so there's been so many decisions in our business that I would have done differently. But the way that we ended up doing it was better because we were a team. And so I've seen that the body of Christ working together, even some who are not followers of Jesus, still have God-given talents and thoughts, and they have all contributed to make us a better company. So it's not a company of superstars. It's a company of diverse people who respect each other, and it's made a huge difference.
Yeah, the only person who knows everything is God, and everybody else is limited. Everybody has limited experience, training, interests, skills. And so, of course, how could it possibly be that you or I or anybody we know always have the right answer? There's always somebody who knows things, no matter how knowledgeable you are, no matter how experienced. There's always somebody who knows something that you do not know and you need to know.
The guys that have the most apparent talent and strong talent also have the biggest weak spots. And some of the guys that don't seem so amazingly talented don't possess some of those weak spots either. And so they can really help. And that iron sharpening iron has been so helpful for us.
All right. Hey, our time is getting close to an end, Alan. So let me ask you my rapid fire questions. You ready?
Yep.
Question number 1, is there a book that you like to give people to help them share your vision for good work, hard work, glorifying God, and leading to generosity? Has anybody influenced you?
Yeah. Randy Alcorn, The Treasure Principle. It's a nice, small, easy to read book. You can read it in 30 minutes. Phenomenal about money. And I think that's one of those blind spots for people of faith. I think there's a lot of disobedience in this area of money. And Randy was a huge influence on me. Every Good Endeavor by Tim Keller. It's a great book on basically the value of work. So those are two that I put on the top of the list.
Yeah, we like that. We like both of them. I'll just repeat the title, Randy Alcorn, The Treasure Principle. And it's right. He's such a readable author, and it's short, and he tells you what you need to know in a quick minute. All right, if you had somebody walking in the parking lot or on a long elevator ride, a young person getting started in your field, big projects, transportation, storage, power, what would you say to an eager 25-year-old?
Yeah, I'd say get good at what you do. Work hard. Work is not a negative thing. Work is not a necessary evil so you can afford the good things in life. Work is part of the good stuff in life. So work hard and be good and use the skills and gifts God has given you. If you'll do that, things that you're maybe anxious for will come. If you're self-serving and you're looking for your own path all the time, I think that's counterproductive to success. And so I'd say work hard, be good, be a student of whatever industry you're in, try to get better and better at it, and have a little bit of patience, but also go work at a place where people do care about you and where people are developing you. If you don't feel like you're being developed, look for a place where you can be developed.
That's a great word. Look for a place where you're being developed. Look for a place where people are investing in you.
Yeah.
And it's okay to leave if you know people are just taking advantage of you and they're just asking you to work and work and work, and they're not giving you the opportunity to grow. Thanks for that one. Anything you would like to tell us that people get wrong about your industry? Anything you'd like to clarify?
I'm very involved with our industry association. I know a lot of the guys in the industry. I think they are generally just good, solid people who want good things. We are working around smokestacks and big plants and things like that. but that doesn't make us evil people. These are just generally good people, hardworking, trying to figure out ways of doing things. I think they deserve respect. I think the military deserves respect for what they do. I think teachers do. I think guys who are strapped on their tools and go out and make sure that the infrastructure of our society is working deserves our respect. And our guys get called out in the middle of the night, and when it's snowing and raining and hot, and they have to go do the work. And we're a service business. We go serve. I think they deserve a tremendous respect of our society. And I think our society kind of looks at them as a bunch of blue collar guys who, maybe aren't so intelligent or whatever. These guys are highly intelligent, and they do great work. And without them, we'd be in a huge mess.
There's a book about motorcycle maintenance, and the author said he has a PhD and worked in a think tank, and he says it takes every bit as much intelligence, if not more, to fix a cranky, old, misbehaving motorcycle than it does to run a think tank in Washington, D.C. Nothing wrong with think tanks. The other thing, I'm sure we'd agree, when somebody says the energy industry is dirty, I want to ask them, and sometimes I do you have an HVAC system in your house? Do you use air conditioning? Do you turn on the heat in the wintertime? Because I got to tell you, if you're scorning the people working in the energy industry, you want to be consistent, go get a wood stove and a hand fan.
Split your wood, yeah. Oh, God.
I got one more for you. You're a hardworking man. You work diligently, and you work diligently giving your money away also. And you work diligently helping other people get strong. What do you do to relax? What do you do for fun?
I'm a backpacker.
Oh, okay, great.
I actually took a sabbatical in 2022 and hiked the Appalachian Trail. I took 4 months off and hiked 2,200 from Georgia to Maine. And it was quite an experience, but I love being out in the woods, and I love backpacking out there. Just
Who did you go with? Did you go by yourself or with 2 or 3 friends?
By myself.
Went by yourself?
Yeah, but I met all kinds of people on the trail, and I had some of my kids came and joined me for short stints, and met several other folks. But it was a great experience.
How strong did your legs get?
Pretty strong, and you lose a lot of weight too because you're burning so many calories. And you just can't eat enough food. So when you get to town, you really chow down on whatever's there, and it's so it was a wonderful experience.
I have a riddle for you. What do you call somebody who hikes 1,350 miles of the Appalachian Trail but doesn't do the whole thing? What do you call that person?
Really good shape.
Well, my answer is you call him a hiker. You don't call him a failure.
No, not at all.
Not at all. That's great. Alan, it's been a pleasure to be with you and to hear about your work. Boy, if I'm ever in your neck of the woods, I'm going to call you up and see if I can look at one of your big rigs. I have a friend who has some connection with the crane and rigging industry. He moves big cranes sometimes from place to place. He's in the transportation field. I'm thankful for what you do, the way you invest in people, the way you articulate your faith and practice it, both by investing in people, loving your people, and by investing in kingdom causes throughout the world. It's been a pleasure to get to know you.
Thank you so much. It's been a joy.
Working with Dan Doriani is a production of the Center for Faith and Work St. Louis. We seek to promote faithfulness in the workplace, in education, in discipleship, and in the stories of believers who've applied their faith at work. If you want to put your faith to work and change your corner of the world, visit our website, the Center for Faith and Work St. Louis. Look for faithandworkstl.org. That's one word. We'll help you start a cohort with like-minded believers who also want to practice their faith at work. This podcast is donor-supported. To keep us going, please donate on our website. Maybe more importantly, you can support us by listening, by subscribing, by sharing, by liking us, by posting us on your favorite platform, or go old school and tell a friend.